Hello, and welcome to Regrets I've Had a Few. I'm Paul Hunter, Artistic Director of Told by an Idiot, and this is a podcast where I talk to friends and colleagues delving into what made them the person they are today. Hello, and welcome. My guest this month is an actor equally at home on stage and screen. His theatre work includes the National Theatre's acclaimed production of The Barbershop Chronicles and the title role in Othello. On screen, he's probably most popularly known for Koji in ITV's hit sitcom Kate and Koji. Oh, and he appeared in a Told by an Idiot show in which 45 custard pies were thrown. Welcome, Okorie Chukwu.
Thank you so much for that introduction, and how lovely to see you and be here.
It's great to have you, Corey. It really is. Thank you so much. Now, we will, of course, come to the custard pies. We can't do this chat without mentioning those. Now I've intrigued people. But I always start these chats by taking people right back to the beginning, because I'm always intrigued by people's first kind of connection, particularly if they're an actor, to performing or theatre. Can you remember the first thing you saw, or what you were taken to, or was it at school, or what was your first engagement with theatre?
Well, my actual first engagement was more through television, to be honest with you, when I was young, watching, whether it be The Goonies or Back to the Future, these kind of shows that were coming from America in the early 90s. And I was very much, I think I was always taken by wanting to go on those kind of journeys that these characters were. There's a whole array of films, but there was no kind of none of my family were in theater or acting at all. So maybe when I was about 7 years old, I was watching these kind of films. And then it wasn't up till when I started at secondary school, and my brother, who's 3 years older than me, started getting into acting and drama. So when he was asked by the English teacher to do the nativity play that was coming up, actually, what did we do? No, it wasn't Nativity. It was Scrooge, actually. So he then said, if you wanted to come along, come along. And I went, and I think it was like a Monday evening after school. I had no idea really about what we were going to do. But I do remember when we were doing the rehearsals and the games and the lines and such, I just suddenly felt this kind of intrigue in the games and purpose. And when I was young, I was quite quiet. I didn't really express too much. I kind of just listened a lot. But I remember it was like one of the first times I was speaking, and almost like in a weird way, I had a reason to speak, and it was such a strange experience. And I really felt like, oh yeah, I get what I'm saying, and I know why I'm saying it, and people are responding, and then we're playing games and we're being tested. And it was just like a whole kind of new experience for me. And it kind of just lit me up a bit, and getting on stage and interacting with, I was at a Catholic all-boys school as well. And it was kind of like I was suddenly engaging in a lesson with them, not just listening to the board, but engaging with them and having this kind of experience. And it was funny. It was new for all of us. And I think from there, I just found like it was just a real wonderful thing to do. And it just carried on from there, really.
That's a really interesting way that you talk about that about feeling a reason to speak. That's a really interesting way of expressing it, that as you said, you were maybe quieter, but that you felt, oh, I have a reason here. That's quite a profound thing in a way.
Yeah, because a lot of if I go back, I went 3 primary schools, and if I go back, my memory's a bit jotted about all of it, but equally, I remember myself just observing a lot. I was very much an observer. I had like loads of friends, like one-to-ones, interacting, but not really speaking out in class and engaging as much. But I did take a lot of it in. And equally in secondary school, it was like that. And this was my first year of secondary school when I started drama. And it was more like I would have these lines, and I'll be always ready to say them with enthusiasm, because I kind of just had a grasp on it, instead of my own mind where I was maybe just observing and not knowing how to express. But these lines are almost giving me an experience of expressing. Yeah, so the English teacher was really cool as well. Really enjoyed the way he was running the sessions, and it was just really relaxed as well. And so, yeah, when we done the play, I just remember this satisfaction of being part of something And obviously, I think everyone, well, maybe I'm just speaking for myself, get this sense of, oh, it's me. I'm so important right now. It's just a weird thing that happens when people are clapping for you. You're thinking, yes, yeah.
I can relate to that, Okorie. I get that feeling a lot when I'm on stage. It's only when I go home and I realize I'm not very important at all.
Exactly.
Which is good. Which is good, as it should be. You mentioned those early films, and a bit like you, I didn't grow up in a theatre household or go to the theatre very much. So my introduction to acting was very much via movies and things.
Yeah.
Can you, when you were at secondary school, did you go on any trip to the theatre? Were you taken to see anything, or?
No. It was something I was discovering. I think my brother did, but well, the theater that I would have seen was more the local theater. So because my brother was also involved with the wonderful London Bubble Theater,
Yeah, brilliant.
there in Rotherhithe, and so I used to go watch him do his shows. So that was my kind of experience, and once again, it was just being surrounded by these actors who were young and older than me, and so inspirational as well. And I did look at what my brother was doing. I was really excited about it. And then I kind of went on to join the London Bubble Theatre. So it was much these kind of community shows. So yeah, after doing the school play, I then went to do some classes at the London Bubble. That was great. That was like the first time I was doing extracurricular activity, traveling down to Rotherhithe, doing these acting classes, which was amazing. And then after that, I remember the young Vic used to do youth theatre over the summer.
Yeah.
I done some summer theatre workshops with them as well. So
that's brilliant. It's interesting. Sorry, Okorie. It's interesting when you talk about London Bubble, because actually I was at the London Bubble space a bit earlier in the year running a workshop just in that space. And
yeah.
I think they were extraordinary Bubble. I know so many actors who did show, and they had such skillful performers who could play music, who could do comedy, who could sing. And they were an extraordinary company.
Yeah, I think at that time it was Jonathan Petheridge who ran it for quite a while. And Trish Lee, who used to run the classes as well, back in with the early 90s to about 2001. I think they were there, maybe a bit later. But yeah, I just remember those fantastic classes, and I particularly remember one which was just hilarious. I mean, they set up an improvisation, and it was like based on, like, say, the bill, and you've got the suspects in the room, and then they give you this bag of objects, and it's like, now you have to tell the suspect why you think they did the crime and how they did it. And you put your hand in the bag, and then the apple comes out. And you're like, okay, how am I going to do this? And it was such intriguing way of that getting into theater, and it was very funny. And, as a young person, you're just being tested in a way to create these dramas.
Yeah. And also, I think that thing, I mean, this when you worked with us. I mean, improvisation is at the heart of everything we do at Told by an Idiot. And I think as a performer and a young performer, when you get exposed to improvisation and get a taste for it, it's very exciting that you're not only saying words that someone's giving you, but you're being allowed to make it up and be creative. It's quite a liberating thing, I think.
Quite liberating, sometimes terrifying, I think.
Yes, of course.
When
Yeah.
enter into improvisation, but my memories of when you kind of get into it, it's such a rewarding experience. And obviously working with your other never try this at home, it was just an array. It was such an open space the way that was run. I think it was one of my first experience, like, outside of drama school. And working with, obviously, Told by an Idiot, you guys have wonderful work over the years, the decades, and it was just such a freeing experience to be in a room with professionals, such talented comedians. And it was the first time surrounded by these now Ashdown, Harper, amazing talented performers who were just so open.
You were a brilliant part of that. But you mentioned drama school. So at what point did you start to think, oh, maybe I could do this for a living? Did you know about drama schools, or how did that happen?
I didn't, but I remember when I was in year 9 at secondary school, and I said to when I was choosing what I wanted to do for my last 2 years, and I said to the head of my year, I wanted to do acting. And he kind of went, I'm not quite sure. if that would be the right thing for you. And I remember,
he was right behind you, Okorie.
in some way, you know, maybe this was the fire that drove me even more. Because I remember to this day where I was on the stairwell, just right next to the dinner hall. And I said it to, and just the way he said it, and I thought, why are you saying that? It just in the back of my head. And I said, I'm going to do this. But I didn't do drama in my last 2 years, but I did go to college to do drama. And it was through college, I was like, yeah, I would like to go into drama school. And I didn't go straight the year after. I took a year out. And then it was during that year out, I was like, okay, I'm going to start trying to get into drama school. And it actually took me 3 times to get into drama school, actually. It was on my 3rd occasion because I couldn't get in the first 2 times. And I always auditioned for Mount View. And the second time I did RADA as well. I wasn't like choosing loads. I kind of wanted to go to Mount View. So it was on the 3rd occasion, and I had done some youth theatre along that journey. And on the 3rd occasion, I got in. But what was interesting is that later on, I think, because beforehand, I used to speak with a sibilant S. So I used to have kind of like a subtle speech impediment. And when I entered, they were saying that much of their decision was based on not knowing if I could work on and get rid of the sibilant S. And I discovered that later, and I was like, wow, it's quite interesting. You know, that was what some of the decision was based on. But as soon as I was told that, within 3 months of starting my training, I got rid of it by just doing the work. And it was kind of like, well, I understand that, but people do the work and can get rid of the sibilant S. So it was during college, I decided I wanted to, well, that year out, I decided I wanted to get into drama school. 2 years later, I got into Mount View and began my training there. At Mount View.
And how did you find Mount View?
So notably, they, at the time, it was musical theatre, but their acting course had gotten so much better. And such a range of skills taught there, acting, but with movement, and they did quite a bit of devising. So they train all-round actors. If I'm honest, drama school was a tricky experience for me. I think it was quite a different experience for me. But I enjoyed when I was up doing the work. I wasn't really taken by too much of the discussion because it was a bit much. I've always enjoyed getting up and doing it and learning on the experience. And so the first 2 years were cool. I did pick up a lot, you know. I love doing the Shakespeare, particularly. I also love doing restoration. I really love restoration, actually.
Interesting.
I like the fact that it's serious, but it's funny. And I think that's what I really enjoyed about restoration, that these characters take themselves so seriously, and the timing and there's such a vibrance about it. It's so heightened but grounded at the same time.
That's very interesting you say that. And obviously it's maybe an obvious thing to say, but I do think about comedy a lot. It's very important to us at Told by Minute. And I think what you say there is really important is actually mostly you should be very serious in any comedy. Mostly those characters don't think anything's funny. They're usually in a very serious situation, which makes it funny. What was your favorite parts to play at Mount View?
So we also did, I remember in my 3rd year, we did the Marat Sard.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Extraordinary play.
And the head of the school at that time had taken on that project. And, you know, so many different characters. And the way he approached it, he got us to read a book about illnesses, like mental illnesses. And then he would have us choose one for our character. And then he would have us get up. And he done this interesting improvisation, not exactly improvisation, but a way of getting into the lines. And what he did, whilst we were in this kind of, had decided what our character's illness was, he would have another actor say the line to us, and then we would say it. So in a way, we're not thinking about the lines, but we're just trying to embody it. And it just took on a whole nother kind of level of embodiment, the words. Yeah. And with that, he just made all of us go through that, and it made us think about taking the time and letting the words fall in to our intention and then put it out. But it was like about, I think was it the whole year? It was half of the year that we're in that play.
Wow.
And I really enjoyed that because for me, I had never played a character kind of, who was Jacques, the name's gone from me, but a very outspoken character who was a rabble rouser.
Oh, wow.
I never kind of played like a character like I was like really freeing, like, oh, I want to cause trouble. I'm really outspoken. And, I really enjoyed like doing that kind of role. So that was a interesting one. And then I think that was the most significant one in my third year that I really enjoyed.
And then when you then left Okorie and you started sort of working in theatre, it's funny, I'm sitting here talking to you just before I start our technical rehearsal at the New Vic Theatre for our new production. And you've obviously worked here in Around the World in 80 Days, and it's such a fantastic space. What did you feel about acting in the Round? For those listeners who don't know, the New Vic Theatre is totally in the Round. I think it's really exciting. Was that your first time in the Round, or had you acted in that configuration before?
It was my first time in the Round. It was actually like one of the first jobs after drama school, and beautiful, wonderful experience. One of the best round stages in terms of in the Round I've ever been on. Because
it's amazing.
But I think the acoustics, the proximity to the audience, the warmth of the space, it was so amazing. And Around the World in 80 Days was a comedy. It was devised once again around so many talented comedic actors and actors, and such a beautiful space, the New Vic. I think the New Vic as well, if I just say this, is one of the theaters that I think really still holds a community connection, in the sense that
I totally agree.
Come there, really have a relationship with the theater. They have a history with the theater. They love the theater. And when I was there, it was such a warm, beautiful experience. All the staff there are amazing. Teresa, who runs it now, is amazing.
I totally agree, Okorie. We did a rehearsal last week for the Ages and Stages group who come and they came to watch our rehearsal, and you got a real feeling that it was their theatre. It was so lovely to hear them share their feelings about it. So then, of course, I have to come to when you joined the Idiots for Never Try This at Home. And in some ways it was clearly, if I look back on it, it was based around something that was before you were born. This TV show Tiswas that was important to me in my youth, and obviously was connected to Birmingham, where we co-produced the show. And to this day, I suppose it's probably the most anarchic show we've ever made. I mean, we do like anarchy at the Idiots, but I remember saying to our designer Michael Vale, you remember, I said, I want in the first 5 minutes, I want there to be a huge custard pie fight involving everybody. And Michael Vale went, isn't it better to do that at the end so we don't have to clear it off? And I said, no, I want a massive one at the beginning and a massive one at the end. And I just have such amazing memories of all of you in this anarchy and these pies flying, and we've been very lucky, I think, to do amazing experiences with Tom around the world in exotic places. But one experience that I think will live with me forever was when we closed the theatre tent at the Latitude Festival. You remember? Now, of course, it's not like the Rolling Stones closing Glastonbury. I'm not saying it's that, but I've never seen such an extraordinary sight as not only you pieing each other, but members of the audience joining you on stage to pie each other. Do you remember that?
That was a bit, we didn't even realize that would happen, because we've been in the theater where everyone's like, oh, great, it's over. But everyone in Latitude just went crazy. And it was so fantastic. It was like, this is like how it should have always been, almost.
Exactly.
I would love for people to get up and pie us.
Yeah. And I think because it was the end of the festival, everyone was kind of out of it in one way or the other. You're right. It was kind of never... It was the performance that I always wanted to see, which we couldn't quite achieve it inside the theatre. But you were brilliant in it, and you were so for it and very open as a performer. And I think that's really important. It's a very important quality to remain curious and open as a performer. Is that something you think about, or is it just it comes natural to you?
Definitely. I always try to be open, and I think naturally I do like to be open because I do like the experience, and I do like generally having trust in the company, and anything I do because I love it, and I just want to have that open trust. But I think as well, the company at that time, it was so like you could not be, you had to be open in that kind of space because everyone was just up for it and having fun, and the space was it was just like such a fluid experience.
Well, it's interesting talking about kind of different experiences as an actor, because you've gone on obviously to do a lot of work on screen, and the sitcom, of course, that you've been doing for a while, that must have that was a big thing to step into, isn't it? I mean, you were taking over in the role, is that right, from Jimmy Akimbola? How did that all happen and come about?
It was at a time I was going crazy because I was auditioning a lot, and you have that moment where you're like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden this audition came up, and I was like, oh, another audition, I'm probably not gonna get it. Okay, I'll go in and I'll meet Andy, and so it came up that it was the second series of Kate and Koji. Jimmy Akimbola had gone on to do Fresh Prince in the US. So they were looking for another actor and to do this character of Koji, who's a asylum seeker. So I went in and I read with them, and I had 4 days, and there was like 6 scenes to like look at, and I was like, what? So I was like drilling it every day, still thinking, oh, this is gonna just go downhill anyway, I haven't even got enough time. But I said, okay, I'm gonna go in. And I was really doubtful, actually, and my agent was like, just go in and go and audition. I said, okay. And I went in and I was reading the character, and it was kind of like one of those auditions where the director's just looking at you, they're just staring at you, and you're thinking, this is so bad. And every scene I read, they were like, great, wonderful. Okay, next scene. Great, wonderful. And then I was like feeling so bad, I thought maybe I should ask some questions because maybe they think I'm not interested enough. So I was like, hey, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? They're like, yeah, great. I was like, oh God, this is so bad. So anyway, got to the end, left, and I was like, oh, that was terrible. And then about 4 days later, my agent called up and was like, oh yeah, they're really considering you for the role. I was like, what? Are you serious? And then a few days after that, they're like, you got the role. And obviously I was like, yes, I smashed it.
Wow, it's a good lesson though, isn't it? Because I don't know about you, but sometimes when I've done auditions for something and I think it's gone really, really well, I think, I nailed that. And then I don't hear a word.
Yeah.
And other
always
times,
the way.
Always other times I think, well, I wasn't quite sure, and then you do. And then it also, not only is it an extraordinary part for you, but you're then acting opposite Brenda Blethyn. I mean, at what point did you meet her?
I mean, yeah, so it was quite a short because they had to postpone it because of lockdown and such like that. So it was quite a tight schedule. So I think I got offered it in November, and then they wanted to do some preliminary shooting in December. October, then preliminary shooting in December, outdoor shooting. So I had a meal. I first actually met Blake Harrison, and then we had another meal to meet Brenda because she was busy. I think she was shooting on Vera at the time. So yeah, they sat me, had a meal with Brenda just to chat with her, and she's just lovely. I mean, she's such a down-to-earth, warm-hearted person, highly skilled. I mean, her comedy is fantastic, and her just drama. She's just so seamless with it, and she's such a person who gives so much to the work. So yeah, and working with her was just amazing. She's you can never see it coming. She can be serious and just switch into comedy and just make you laugh on stage. And the whole thing was just such a marvelous experience to be filming, once again, doing live sitcom comedy in front of a live audience. We don't do that really anymore. The Americans do, but British comedy doesn't get to do that as much.
No, it's true. I've done a few much smaller parts than you were doing, but over the years, in the past, I've been a guest on various sitcoms, and I used to love the live audience ones. I just thought it, because it was almost a hybrid of theatre and TV. Do you know what I mean? It was almost a mix.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think it was right. And from when I read the script, to be honest, I did feel like I identified with the character. So then going on to play it, I really was able to find so much. I really enjoyed, because Koji's character is quite down to earth. He's not trying to be funny. He's just funny because of the responses he has. And then bringing in a bit of vulnerability, I really enjoyed with that character. And then him being the support at times. There was such a dynamic to his character. And, me and Brenda as well, our characters will have a bit of a loggerhead here and there. So it was really nice to kind of be having this experience. And then being in a live audience, I remember the first day I was shooting, as soon as we got on the stage and we were rolling, and at the first crowd laughter, it was such a surreal thing because it was like I was watching the comedy that I was in, because that laughter is so like attached to sitcom comedy, so it's such a real experience, and thinking I'm actually here on the stage doing a sitcom comedy, because I've watched so many of these kind of styles of comedy.
No, and to be in it must be surreal. I also, this is slightly left field, but it is to do with performance, but I know, or I think we chatted, or I've seen on your CV or something, but that you have over the years trained or done martial arts, is that right? Of some sort?
Going back to when I had that year out, because also along the times when I was younger, watching a lot of movies, I was also exposed to a lot of Hong Kong cinema, predominantly Jackie Chan's work. And I remember my brothers who were older would stay up one Christmas when they were showing a lot of Jackie Chan films, and my dad would be like, "Go to bed, get in bed. You can't stay out late watching Jackie Chan at midnight." So they would set the recorder to record overnight. And my dad hated the electricity being on, but he couldn't tell when the video was on. Even though it was a red light, he would look at it and he would just think, maybe it's supposed to be on, And then in the morning, we would get up. And I think we were watching this film called Police Story. And I was just seeing this guy jump around, move fast. I didn't know what the story was about. I just saw him bouncing around like this. And I was like, I would love to do that. So it wasn't until later in life. I mean, I was watching Jackie Chan when I was about 8 years old, but when I was about 18, 19, I decided I was going to start martial arts training and gymnastics. And I haven't looked back. I just love there's so much to it, just the health, the philosophy,
the discipline,
experience, and it is an expression as well. I consistently go back to it just for expression. In the park, I'll be backflipping or doing
have you ever had to use it in any work, any film, TV, or anything? Have you got to do that yet?
In 80 Days, when I played Battle Card, the circuit,
yes, of course,
right? I was tumbling down. I was going from one bump to the other, doing the backflip, somersault, cartwheels.
You were,
I'd done the splits on the stage. Mike Hugo, another wonderful comedy actor, had to try and mimic me, but he done it funnily. So great, trying to copy me doing the splits. And then I did I played the Ninja Pirate in Regent's Park Peter Pan, and I had two swords. I ran on stage doing an aerial with two swords in my hand. I was fighting the twins with swords.
Yes. Now, Okorie, it's been lovely chatting. I always end in the same way. I'm going to ask you 7 quick-fire questions.
Okay.
And you just have to say your first answer. This is quite apt, given our last bit of conversation. Jackie Chan or Bruce Lee?
Jackie Chan, unfortunately.
Mastermind or Pointless?
Mastermind.
Whitney Houston or Beyonce?
Whitney Houston.
Yoga or Pilates?
Yoga.
If you had to do another job, you've got to choose between 2: jockey or escapologist?
Jockey.
Jockey, okay. Trapeze or high wire?
High wire.
LA or New York?
New York.
It's been so lovely chatting to you. Let's not leave it so long, and good luck with everything in showbiz, okay?
Definitely, Paul. Lovely to see you, and hope to see you soon.
Take care, mate. All the best.
Cheers.
Dear listeners, if you've enjoyed this idiot podcast, please spread the word